Welcome, and welcome everyone. I'm Alfred Lamont Weber, and I'm here with Dr. Eloecea. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Very close, Eloecea.
Eloecea. I didn't have the accent on the right syllable, but Eloecea. And this is and we're really going to be talking about the essence and projects of Intergalactic Connections, which is a very advanced project, and it's quite extraordinary to have this here in Vancouver, BC, and to have so many connections, mutual connections, including Mount Adams, Washington. So could you share with us how Intergalactic Connections came to be, what its connection to Vancouver, BC, and to Mount Adams, Washington, and Eloecea is, all of which are places that, encompass many of the viewers of this channel and many of us. Please share with us.
Be happy to, Alfred. Thank you for inviting me into this conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing
Oh, great.
It's really fun these days to look forward to something, isn't it? As opposed to focusing on what it looks like outside.
Oh yeah. This is the positive timeline.
Yes, absolutely. There's two basic parts of intergalactic connections. The first is the Ascension process, the accelerated evolutionary process that's happening in the world right now. And the second then, that part is preparing us to become intergalactic citizens, which is what Intergalactic Connections is all about. From the Ascension perspective, I came from a religious spiritual tradition, and about 20 years ago, Christian tradition. 20 years ago, I shifted from that into more of a New Age understanding and then left that after a few years. And now it's basically, for me, all about unity consciousness, all about Christ consciousness. How can we live together in a way that promotes equality and compassion and respect and love for everyone? It's my understanding that that's the level of vibration that most of our intergalactic neighbors operate at, that or above. So they're waiting for us to let go of the duality, the polarity that we have experienced here on Earth for millennia, the good, bad, the right, wrong, us and them kind of thing, so that we can come together in community with ourselves and then with them. So that's the foundation of intergalactic connections. And over the past maybe 10, 15 years, I've been told at one point that I was being prepared to be a diplomat to the nations. At another point, I was told that one of my aspects, my soul aspects that came along for the ride, is a commander from the Syrian space fleet. He had a ship, and then he was actually the commander of the whole fleet. He's here to assist in this process. I had telepathic and remote viewing experiences with one of his starships that were just allowing me to come and be with them and see what was going on. Part of what Intergalactic Connections is all about is offering a safe space for anyone and everyone to explore who they are, explore the bigger picture. And what I know about myself is my ego mind is extremely strong. And so it's been a process of letting go of my mind thinking it's in control and allowing my higher self to come through. And that's kind of interfered in some ways with my my vision, my clairvoyance. My mind likes to come in and challenge what I've seen. And I suspect that will ring true for a lot of people. And yet I know that these experiences are real for me. So I knew I was being prepared. I didn't know what for. In 2009, I left my career as a psychologist and retired. I spent about 8 years in Ashland, Oregon, not quite knowing what was going on, but knowing something was coming. Then in 2017, I came up to Vancouver here on a student visa, a student permit. I was at the Vancouver School of Theology, and I got another master's, which I never intended to do. But I got another master's in Indigenous and Interreligious Studies, which again brings in the interfaith. After that, I spent a little bit more than a year with Living Interfaith Sanctuary as their interfaith consultant. And then during that time, actually a year ago, I didn't know that this would be happening. So I started receiving this information about Intergalactic Connections, probably March, maybe April of this year. The first thing I knew was there was going to be a welcome center, and that was a place for people to come, get information, kind of shake off their fears that mass media seems to enjoy pairing with our alien off-world friends, and to begin that whole process. And then I was understanding that there would be a dome. The dome would be a place for the space vessels to land, almost like a diplomatic mission house, a place for diplomacy as we start to take our place in intergalactic affairs, a place for scientific collaboration, a place for additional research of that kind of thing. So I had those two pieces. And then one day I was wandering around and I heard, "Go change the sheets on your bed." This is how fun in some ways and how surprising this whole process is for me. I said, I just changed them a few days ago, but it stayed with me, and so I went to change the sheets on the bed, and that shifted me out of wherever my mind was at that point in time. And that's when I realized we needed to have an academy, a place of developing specific programs to prepare people for diplomatic things, for collaboration on scientific aspects, for almost anything in terms of our intergalactic affairs. So that's how that came to me over those months. Again, it's got to be fun these days, otherwise it's not worth doing it. So maybe, August, September, I was nudged to incorporate, to start the process of making it real. And so we incorporated as a member-funded society here in BC. And established a couple of other kind of financial things. And then it was kind of waiting for what's next. And again, this is the part of the unity consciousness that's so important and really a challenge for me. I'm used to getting things done. My history says that I already established a nonprofit in California for foster children. So I've done this. I know how to do this, my mind says. And yet this is a whole different way of being with it. It's allowing the divine alignment to bring it to me, allowing myself to be the visionary and to attract others in who will be doing the work, the volunteering, the whatever. It's just a really different way for me to be. And then in, I think it was November maybe, it doesn't really matter the timing, I was talking about this with Brian Rue from the Vancouver UFO meetup group. And he's actually the one that referred me to you, Alfred, in terms of the academy. He said, "Oh, I know somebody who wanted to do a university." And so I was able to explore your Omniversity a little bit and the wealth of information that you provided to the UFO area. At that same time, I was also listening to another gentleman, Jeff Selver, on one of the meetup online times. And Jeff has a completely different ascension story than me, different contact experiences. And when he started talking about it, my mind just went, that's scary. He's talking about the Greys, and we all know that the Greys are bad, and we all know that they do all this other stuff. And so I just stopped listening. And then I saw that he was going to come back, and he's going to be talking about the Federation of Planets. And I went, that's interesting. So I started listening to him again, and there was just a connection there. What I realized was, and I agree with him in terms of levels of understanding is that often in the higher levels of consciousness, we are our spirits, we are our souls. Our bodies are no different than any other piece of creation. So even as we genetically modify plants and animals, some of the higher beings will do that with us as humans. And it just blew my mind. I keep expanding and letting in new things, and that's kind of fun. And then I go into, am I being crazy or not? So this is kind of a consistent conversation within me as well. So Jeff and I got together, and for the last month or so, we've been meeting. We decided to start the Welcome Centre together. I consider him a co-founder and basically a project manager of the Welcome Centre. So we've been developing a website. Given everything, one of the gifts from COVID is that we're all online now, and that feels like a perfect way to start. It would be very limited to have a brick and board office, or Welcome Center here in Vancouver, and this way we can include the whole world as we choose. That's a fun part of it. So we've been developing the Welcome Center and have discovered that really what we want to do is create this safe place for everybody to explore and everybody to share their own experiences. So it feels like right now what we're doing is establishing the basic site for anybody that comes, the visitors website, as it were, which will be an invitation to explore more. Some information. One of the tabs we are considering is a do-it-yourself exploration place where we give them some places where they can begin to explore and other areas that they can look at. And then the two basic areas that we're focusing on are, we are not who we think we are, because most of us, and myself included, for 2/3 of my life, thought I was this human being having an awful time here and trying to figure out what the heck was going on. But there's just this amazing bigger picture, this expansive place that we are a part of. That's also a part of creation. So we're not who we think we are. And the other area is we're not alone. So to begin to introduce them and share our journeys, our own stories. And I think what we're going to do is ask other people to begin sharing their stories. One of the things that struck us both at the last Vancouver UFO meetup, there's a young woman there who was telling her story of contact for the first time. And that was scary for her because, as for all of us, it's not usually accepted or acceptable to speak of these things. Oh yeah, I went to the spaceship and I went to, and these people came. And so to have a safe space for people who have had contact and had experiences to begin sharing their story and know that they are not alone either. So that's one piece of it. Another part that we would like to develop is called our affiliate program. Let me back up a moment. So the membership program then would be the basic visitors. If they would like more information and more interaction, there will likely be tiers of membership, inviting more information, inviting Q&A times, live podcasts where someone might give a topic and then they can interact with that. Conferences and workshops possibly. So there's a lot of fun things we can do on that website and probably other platforms as well. To balance that, to make it a whole community, we're thinking of an affiliates program where people who have had experiences, people who have been at this for years and years, Alfred, such as yourself, and so many others, can join with us and provide their own podcast, provide a link to their own information, provide their experience and their wisdom about all of this, so that I don't have to do a lot of work. I'm more of a one who brings things together. I kind of create the structure and then invite the community to play together. And that just is so fun for me. I just really enjoy that. So that's the affiliates program then for the website. And to see, the other possibility for the affiliates program would be a mentoring program for some of these folks. I was going to say that the young ones, they're not all young that are just coming out. I was in my 50s when I first started even opening to this. So, but the ones who are newly aware, is a better way to say it, can be paired or mentored by some of those who have been around for a long time, so that we can all come together in raising each other up, inviting the rest of humanity to come into unity consciousness and to prepare this place. So that's the Welcome Center. The next piece would be, and would flow naturally, I think, from the Welcome Center, and that's the Academy, the Intergalactic Academy of Peace and Harmony. I ask you to remember that this is all flowing. So we're working on and playing with the Welcome Center right now. So there's not as many details about these last two pieces, but what I understand the Academy to be is a place where we can bring together people who really have a plan, who have an understanding of what they want other people to know before they might go into a diplomatic position, or before they start to really interact and collaborate with off-world visitors. There are many out there who have had interaction with a lot of our intergalactic neighbors, either individually or as a council. And they would have invaluable information to provide as we prepare to receive them. And the Academy is a place where we can put together programs, where we can put together a course, if you would, and make sure that our humans are prepared in the best way possible to accept the other, to be able to communicate well, to have as much information as we can give them in addition to their own wisdom that they will be receiving through this. So that's the intention of the Academy. I also suspect that there might be some of our intergalactic neighbors who might be part of the teaching of the Academy as we go along. And from there, then, will come the collaborative effort to build the dome, which, again, is the intergalactic spaceport. That will be a brick and board physical manifestation here in the Vancouver area. And it will provide space for the spacecraft to come land, obviously maintenance and stuff. It'll provide residential areas for the crew and for the dignitaries that might come. It'll provide that space for diplomatic gatherings, conferences and workshops, scientific laboratories. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think too, we need to wait on that, not just for knowing that we are a safe place for them to gather, but also I think that they have some things to help us with in terms of this building project. And that's fun for me too. So that's where we are kind of right now.
That is awesome. Now, what is the website? What is the address of the website?
We're just putting it together right now.
I see.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
When it's ready, then we will get the word out. But for right now, we're gathering the content. Jeff and I both have experience in basic website, but it feels very linear. My website is still very linear. Our Journey into Joy I did as my final project at Vancouver School of Theology. Only 2 years ago now, but I look at it and it feels really blocky, really linear. And I'd love to have a website that reflects, the expansiveness, the cloud as opposed to the linear. So we're gathering the content and the format of it, the structure of it. That's what we're up to.
Right. Well, that is extraordinary because you're laying out a vision that would go way beyond disclosure. It would be a transformation of the planet. I mean, just because, to have a dome here with landing, you would have to have a complete transformation of NORAD and of the Earth governments to go into receptivity, to go from scrambling war-fighting
Could you imagine?
aircraft
Right.
into receptivity, and and humans to go from consensual trance about, oh, we are the only thing in the universe, or
Mm-hmm.
total complete dream state, complete Saturn moon matrix dream state, to, oh, well, another day in the neighborhood, here comes the cosmos. So what is your now what is your sort of what is your thought about how that transformation, and I know that is the definition of ascension, right?
Absolutely.
I.e.,
Yes.
that is where Earth ascends into universe society,
Yes.
right?
Yes, absolutely
Yeah.
a part of that.
So,
Yep.
yeah, and that's what's called planetary ascension as opposed to
Correct.
individual ascension. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about planetary ascension? And are these thoughts coming from your visits to the craft, intuition, meditation, what you've been told, book learning? Where are you getting this from?
I can say all of the above. It's
Right.
one of the reasons I left religion, and I left even the New Age philosophy, because there was so many limitations in all of that. We believe this,
Yeah.
but not that. They were still very dualistic. And so I decided, years ago, that I was just going to start exploring for myself and accept what feels right to me. And to me, that's the essence of unity consciousness, is to go inside, clear out all of the old fear-based stuff, and to allow our higher self, spirit, creator, however you want to call it, pure consciousness, allow that to become our new operating system. Because as long as our ego mind is here, it's going to keep trying, as I was sharing earlier, it's going to keep trying to redefine it in things that we learned in the past. That's all our mind does. It's just a computer. So in order to open up to new, we really need to allow in our higher self, the higher vibrations of what we know. So that's how I am speaking from this. Through my own experience, I've read, I've listened to videos, a lot of different things, and I continue to do so. But I'm learning to trust my own voice now. It was funny, a couple of weeks ago, I was getting something from Amazon, and I came in and I heard, go look at the books. And I don't need a book. I don't read that many books anymore. Not, at least not serious ones. Well, go look at the books. And there was this thing called, I think it's right here, The Book of Unusual Knowledge. And I kept looking, and I kept looking at other things, and nothing really happened. Kept going back to that. And they had me order that day. I was, how do you even say that? I knew to order that. That was my impulse. And so I got it a few days later, and I was looking at that, and it's like all of these basically trivia, which is kind of interesting. But what I understood was, you are a book of unusual knowledge. So it's not so much what was in that book, is that I am a book of unusual knowledge, as we all are, as we allow ourselves to open up to what our mind is trying to kind of keep back because it's really scary.
Right. So this is, no, and I can see how this unfoldment would come, so that the Welcome Center, this is an amazing manifestation. We had started with Exo University, which had some pilot semesters back in 2011 and the 2012, and we held some seminars over here at one of the community centers at the Roundhouse. You know, the thing, the
On Yale?
Roundhouse, yeah, the Roundhouse Community Center. And then from there, we when the Omniverse books came in, they started to come in around 2014 was the first Omniverse book. And now there are 3 Omniverse books. So with the Omniverse books came the realization that universities were chartered to explore universes, which are singularities of time, energy, space, and matter. And our current universities are gatekeeping all of the spiritual dimensions and the extraterrestrials. I mean, I've been knocking at the universities here in British Columbia for 20 years to try and get on to try and have them teach courses. I even went with a complete curriculum to the universities here to teach courses on exopolitics, and they say, "Oh, that's too advanced, Alfred. We could never teach courses on that here." I mean, and so I realized that there are universities to study the universe. So we need omniversities to teach the omniverse, because the omniverse equals multiverse, the collection of all the universes, plus the spiritual dimensions, which the spiritual dimensions include all the ecology of dimensions, plus the afterlife, the intelligent civilizations of souls, spiritual beings, and source. So that's what you need, is the omniverse, so you aren't gatekeeping all of the dimensions, which is what universities do, because they're just study singularities of time, energy, space, and matter, and that's all there is. The scientific canon, right?
Yes.
So,
but we can see and feel and hear and touch. I very much appreciate that paradigm. As I was reading some of your material, I thought, yep, that's it. I got it. The omniverse. Nice. Yeah.
So I really welcome more and more arrivals here. You know, it's like we're finally having some arrivals here to have, you know, a populated universe welcoming center, and I can see that you can have the welcoming center developing into the academies of peace and harmony, and then the dome space, and the question is that those could develop out of the consciousness here, irrespective of what the 3D people are doing, because those grow out of the consciousness of 5th dimension, 4th density.
Yes.
And this is something that I felt. I'd like to ask your how you felt about it. I felt that on December 21st, 2020, when we went through the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, and this is subjective because I can't prove it, but that subjectively, we actually went through a portal, and that we left behind a lot of duality consciousness, and we landed in a dimension of unity consciousness. We are one, leaving behind duality consciousness, which is I when you lose. And that we've landed on a positive timeline. And that's why things are much easier now. You know, it seems like things are happening much easier, you know? And in a way, if we look down below the 49th parallel, that's why that dinosaur down there is starting to fall apart, because that dinosaur was committed to war, disease, crime, and poverty. It was the United States corporation, not the constitutional democracy, not the American people, but that contractor out of the Act of 1871 which was a contractor, the District of Columbia, who was a contractor to the Vatican City and the City of London, and was the District of Columbia was the military contractor to those two entities around the world, and they just didn't have a year in which they weren't carrying out wars is now disintegrating after December 21st, 2020. And that, you know, the mainstream media doesn't know quite what to make about it. And you have hysterical speakers of the House running around and trying to impeach people in record time and all these things that, as a constitutional lawyer, which I am, I've taught constitutional law at the University of Texas. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it's like hysteria, right? They're actually falling apart because we're going through a planetary ascension, and we did so going through that portal of December 21st, 2020, so that our conversation makes a lot more sense in terms of manifestation of the Welcome Centre, of the Academy of Peace and Harmony, of the Dome, of Omniversity, now in this new frame of planetary ascension that we're in now. So how do you feel about all of that?
I don't think that it was a mistake that I didn't receive this information until less than a year ago. I absolutely believe that we have started this ascension process. We've been at it for years now, obviously, but COVID is a part of it. It has shifted the way we are together all over the world. I mean, this is a global thing that's happening. What I understand is that although Intergalactic Connections is based here in Vancouver, it's probably the what's it called? The first one that will be then replicated around the planet. I mean, this is something that is just starting. And so you were just a little bit ahead of your time with the Omniversity, it sounds like. But I absolutely agree. I have heard from many that we jumped timelines in December. Now, whether we can each experience that or not, or how we each experience that is very individual. You know, we may see it, we may experience it as our lives falling apart, because that's what needs to happen in the new timeline. We were open enough to shift there, and now we're letting go of that, just like you were talking about a bit ago with our neighbors down south. So much of this is individual, but the intention is indeed to come into that place where we can all accept and appreciate and respect each other for who they are. It doesn't matter what your individual beliefs are, as long as we can come into that heart of knowing we're all part of creation. You know, that's the bottom line. The other part I wanted to share with you, I've been doing marketing research, or at least looking around to see what else is out there. There's two places that I'm aware of in North America here that have landing pads. There's one in Alberta, in eastern Alberta, that's been around. I think they did with the Centennial in the, what was it, the 60s here. So they have a landing pad. And there's one in South Carolina as well, I believe, that has the same kind of sense. They have a landing pad, round, of course, because all spaceships are round, we know. So they have a landing pad, and then they have a museum or a gift shop or whatever else associated with it. But I also ran across this other organization, and it is at rael.org. And they actually have schematic drawings for an embassy, an intergalactic embassy. I was really surprised at that. So they have put also a lot of thought into that, and a lot of desire, and they have their own belief system behind it. But they have this whole plan, and they're looking for a country that will accept them, because as you were saying, it wouldn't be a good idea to invite the spaceships in and have somebody shoot them down. I remember a story that I heard a while back. I think it was back in the 50s when obviously we first became aware of them and then covered it up. But someone here in Canada, I don't remember who it was, someone here in Canada wanted to invite someone they were in contact with, another intergalactic space vessel, to come to Canada. And the Canadian government at that time guaranteed their safety, that they could land. But the kicker was they couldn't guarantee that they could leave. So the ship decided not to come. I thought that was a great story. So there's a lot of different things that need to happen. I think I am in Vancouver. I was told I'm in Vancouver because the vibration here, it's just one of the cities of light. The vibration here is higher than, this is where I needed to be because of that. So I agree with you that I think that things are shifting, that this is possible. I have no clue what the timing is. And I don't need to know the timing. You know, my mind would want to go, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. But this allowing thing is really quite fun, you know, kind of letting it.
Yeah, yeah. I've been seeing that now in 2021 on the other side of the portal of the Jupiter Saturn portal,
Mm-hmm.
to use the word flow instead of timing,
Yes.
because it's a flow. But getting back to the landing pad here in Western Canada, the person who went out to inaugurate that, this is my book, Exopolitics.
Could be where I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, that founded the science, is credited with founding the science of exopolitics, that was published in the year 2000, that was time traveled by DARPA CIA back to 1971.
Right.
So the secret time travel government. And the Honorable Paul Hellyer,
Mm-hmm.
who was the Minister of Defense of Canada, who's here written an introduction to it. He, as Minister of Defense of Canada, went out and inaugurated that, which I thought was a nice touch. So here you have an official of the government of Canada went out and inaugurated that particular landing pad, and Paul Hellyer has dedicated this. He's quite a person, and one of the patrons of exopolitics and Omniversity, and very much here. I last met him on recently, when prior to the pandemic, he was here at a talk. The last paragraph of that, he says, to turn us in the direction of reunification with the rest of creation, the author is proposing, quote, a decade of contact, a, quote, era of openness, public hearings, publicly funded research and education about extraterrestrial reality. This could be just the antidote the world needs to end its greed-driven, power-centered madness. So it sounds like, we're all driven by the same kind of realization, and we've all ended in Vancouver with this same, same sort of impulse.
Yeah.
And it may be here that, the dome comes up, and I know that part of my life journey was that I spent a good part of the early. This was from 1973 forward. I'm from the class of 1973. In that, my abduction took place in February 1973, where I was taken aboard spacecraft. And that's where I got all of the visions and stuff, and was actually told then and saw what is actually happening now, back in 1973, and journeying forward ever since. And then from a certain period forward, came to the I Am community in Eastern Canada, in Ontario, that they had been taken up. In 1976, an entire community, about 150 people, have been taken up in spaceships, and then educated there and then brought back down, and they spread out all over the world and had what they call starships, which were their embassies. They had embassies all over the world in all capital cities. And of course, it was with the vision that they had experienced up on the spaceships. And there would be a lot in common. In fact, I became kind of the super ambassador of the Institute of I Am, so that one of the people there, and I went up there and joined with them, and they were in the same Welcome Center, Academy of Peace, and their centers were called domes. So when you said domes, I said, oh, and they were called domes, and those were the terms brought down from the spaceships. So we've been inside of these thought forms now since the 70s. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was even this was during Pierre Trudeau's government, where they would go down, and Pierre Trudeau's girlfriend was part of it, and it was all, So this is a long saga. I mean, put it that way.
Well, if you consider a new awareness of of the history of Earth, the history that we are taught is what, this much of the history of Earth. So there's a lot that we can learn about ancient aliens here beforehand, and how ancient aliens are reflected in the sacred texts that we have, and I mean, there's just so much, just really beautiful understanding of our history, that we are not who we think we are. And that's what's fun, is to offer that to people, and to offer it to them, to invite them to expand. There's no way we can force this, because it's got to be each individual's decision to let go of the old in order to open to the new.
Yeah. Well, it suddenly occurred to me that it might be good, since it's obvious that yourself and myself, we've been in sort of parallel paths. If we met on a regular basis, maybe an hour at a time, and had sort of a similar conversation, perhaps we could structure it, different topics, and maybe met once a month or something, and focused on a particular Ascension topic, or does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be fun. I would enjoy that idea.
Yeah, and I think that that's a way to build the whole spirit of the Welcome Center, build the Academy of Peace and Harmony, build the sum and substance of Omniversity, Exo-University, which we've been building also, build the dome spaceport. I mean, I've been in domes since the 1970s back in Ontario,
Yes. Yes, you have.
And we used to call the houses in the particular cities were called starships. and the domes were kind of the larger headquarter ones, according to things.
Well, actually, the group that I was talking about that had the architectural drawings of their embassy are all white domes connected with corridors of two other white domes. So I get that.
Yeah.
The other part of that I was reflecting on, I was watching a video of someone who was doing remote viewing of Mars. And she was looking at different places, and they were all covered with domes. And I listened to that, electromagnetic fields to protect them, so that they cannot be discovered or whatever. And I thought, well, that might be another purpose of the dome in this case. In other words, the first one would have an electromagnetic field around it. They need to be safe here, and that might be
Yeah.
part of it too, but I thought that was kind of fun.
Yeah, because there's a huge amount of electromagnetic weaponry, directed
Yes.
energy weaponry here,
Yeah.
satellites. There are a lot of negative beings here
Mm-hmm.
that are incarnating in human avatars that walk around with names like Bill Gates and David Rockefeller Jr. and people like that are out to depopulate the human race and bring it down from 7 billion to 1 billion. We started a thing called the Natural and Common Law Tribunal for Public Health and Justice at peaceandspace.org. And there are 30 judges from 3 continents, and we've held hearings, a 108-page indictment, and come out with judgments looking at what people call the pandemic. I myself have a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health, and I tell you, this is not a pandemic, in the strict sense.
I get a little crazy around this kind of conversation. I need to say this out loud because it just happened a couple hours ago. From my 50 plus years in the mainstream, and still being a part of that in a lot of ways in terms of my affiliations, it's just been recently that I've been opened up to what a lot of people call the conspiracy theories. It's really just been in this past year too, which is where I found the UFO community.
Oh,
It's all been this last year. This is all kind of like, oh my God. So there are parts of that I can receive and allow to be so. There are parts of that I can just allow to be so and say everybody gets to have different belief systems, just like interfaith. And there are parts of that I go, well, yeah, of course. So again, for me, it's so important to allow everyone to receive all of the information they want, to explore it, and then to go inside and find out what's true for them.
yeah. Well, you see, I understand that, and my parallel path has been to bring freedom inside into the mainstream, so that the Omniverse books came out of a request from Oxford University Press, a division of Oxford University, that approached me to write a book on extraterrestrials and the law. Wow. And Oxford University is the cathedral of the scientific method, so that the books on the Omniverse came out of my proposal to Oxford University Press, out of the scientific method, and are a co-discovery of the Omniverse, in the same way that the Sumerian astronomers discovered the universe in 3500 BC, that the American scientist William James discovered the multiverse in 1895, and that we were able to discover the Omniverse in 2014. So that exopolitics was chosen word of the year by the official English Language Association in 2006. So that our job, I think our approaches are complementary. They're not.
I totally agree.
They're not competing. So that so that we're just and so that my thing was really to displace that kind of rigid mainstream thing with, oh well, look, let's just update the scientific canon
yes.
to be accurate.
Yes. And that's actually what I think one of the things I wrote in terms of the academy, that it's based on psychology and religion and science. because it takes all of those, I mean, not religion specifically, but the spiritual dimension. It takes all of that information, and the scientific process is important. And I totally agree with you that we're on complementary paths. I represent and come from most of the mainstream. You have been in this place for decades, for which I'm really, really grateful, because we needed those of you to prepare the way for this time now. And there's so much that you have written and put out there that we can, and I have learned from. And much of what you have said, I have read in your books, and I very much appreciate that. But it takes me a while, and I think that's why I keep saying my mind gets in the way. My ego mind gets in the way, because it just hangs on. And that's how I know mainstream is, because we don't like the unknown. We don't like to leave what we think is familiar and comfortable. And there is so much more. And that's where you come in with all the other possibilities. And I really appreciate that, Alfred.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, I'm just seeing that the chat here is following what we're saying. I mean, the people are really following a lot of the different threads, etc. Yeah. So, I'm thinking, are there? We now have kind of set the foundation for kind of this ongoing monthly seminar that we've had to land.
We'll find out.
To land the Welcome Centre, to land the Academy of Peace and Harmony, to land the Dome, to land Omniversity, at least in this virtual online venue. Is there anything that you haven't had, that you wanted to have shared, that you haven't had the opportunity to share yet?
Oh, kind of like you, there's so much to say. And I think I want to come back to where we started. And I think that the real beauty for me in all of this is that it is so forward-looking. That to me, that helps me understand and not be in fear of, oh my God, it's all falling apart. But to remember that there's a plan, there's a divine plan going on here, and that in the end, we will be joining our intergalactic neighbors in a higher level of consciousness. And I'm excited about that. I think I'm really grateful I get this part of the job rather than clean up stuff. I like this part.
That is so great, because that is such a tremendous reminder, because it brings me back to why I got into this game in the first place. This is sort of brings me back to 1973, which is when I first got into this game and was taken aboard the craft in February 1973, and then everything changed, and I began, going out and saying, hey, this is what we should be doing, and here we are, January 8th, 2021, and it's so refreshing to hear your message, which is kind of the eternal message, and it's kind of build it and they will come.
You got it. Field of Dreams. It's filmed in Iowa. That's where I grew up. Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alfred.
Oh yeah, and we'll be in touch, and we'll set a date, and we'll go on with episode 2 of our ongoing monthly seminar to land it here. Thank you.
Might even have to open that up to Q&A from the folks that are watching. That could be fun.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of that'd be good. We could start making comments. There's a lot of comments here and ongoing comments on our dialogue. So we might, they say, Dr. Eloecea. Eloecea. They say Eloecea. good to meet you.
Ah,
That is one of the comments. And another comment says, "This is the most reality detached conversation we have heard for 15 years." Whereas
good.
I would say, this is the most realistic conversation we've heard for 15 years.
Depends what reality you're talking about, doesn't it?
Right, exactly. Well, good. So thank you very, very much. And thank you, the chat, for your experience. This will be up at Exopolitics TV. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Periscope at Omniversity, and it's up on the other one at Omniversity Live. And so we'll see everybody soon. And with that,
Bye. Thank you, Alfred.
until soon. Okay. Let me, whoops, there we go. And